Jnanam Satyam Jnanam Jyotir Aravinda Satyam Jnanam Satyam Jnanam Jyotir Aravinda Satyam Jnanam Satyam Jnanam Jyotir Aravinda Jyotir Aravinda Jyotir Aravinda. So I'll begin with a question which people often ask, and I wonder if it's occurred to any of you. Very often, particularly those who are intellectual, have this question that if God is supposed to be all beauty and all good, why is there so much suffering and pain in the world? Is it a question that has ever crossed your mind? It has, yeah? It's a question that comes to all of our minds. And to my mind, in a way, Mother and Sri Aurobindo came to earth as an answer to this question, because Darwin's theory of evolution talks about the evolution from mineral to plant to animal to human, right? And it stops there. But Sri Aurobindo and the Mother say that as imperfect a creature like man cannot be the crowning glory of nature's creative urge, that we have to evolve to the next species, which is the supramental species. Supra is above, like infra is below, above the mind. So we've seen that while man's mind, with all its intelligence, has created magic, it has also created disaster, because there's a limit to which what you can do with the human mind, because the mind is not an instrument of truth as yet. It has to evolve to become an instrument of truth, right? So we have to evolve to a species who intuits the truth and acts out of that rather than through thought. So Mother and Sri Aurobindo said that for this evolution to occur, two things were required. One was man's conscious collaboration with nature, like a monkey didn't have to do anything to become a man. It just happened as a process. But this leap from man to the superman is such a huge leap in evolution that man needs to consciously collaborate with nature. And this conscious collaboration is what Sri Aurobindo's whole integral yoga is about. That's one aspect. The second aspect is the descent of a very special vibration into the earth atmosphere, which is called the supramental force. It sounds like a sci-fi movie, but Mother and Sri Aurobindo's life is really like that. You know, there's that line, "May the force be with you." Well, actually it's like that. This evolution would not be possible till a very special force called the supramental force descended into the earth. And Mother and Sri Aurobindo worked day and night. In fact, after Mother joined him, Sri Aurobindo retired to his room and didn't come out of his room for decades except on darshan days, and that's all. So what was he doing in his room? He was working day and night to bring this supramental force to the earth. And it was very difficult because earth had to be made ready for it, because if the earth's not ready and something so powerful comes down, the earth will break. And finally in 1950, just before that, he indicated to the mother that there's too much resistance in human beings, and one of us will have to leave the body in order to bring down the light. And mother said, I'll go. And Sri Aurobindo said, that can never be. You'll have to stay. If need be, I'll go. So in 1950, when he left his body, we did see, we all know this, but there was actually a golden glow around his body, which lay people like you and me could see. And then that glow stayed for 4 days, and finally he was put into the samadhi. And the mother gave, of course we all know this message, but it bears importance in the context of today to read it. So mother gave this very important message for the samadhi, which is written on the samadhi. To thee who has been the material envelope of our master, that's Sri Aurobindo, to thee our infinite gratitude. Gratitude for what? Because day and night he worked to create the magic Pondi is. Before he and mother came, Pondi had the vibe of the most vital city. It was nothing like this. What it is now is because all the work mother and Sri Aurobindo did, Sri Aurobindo quietly in his cave of tapasya, which was his room. So if every time we go to Pondi as for our gulp of life, our gulp of happiness, that gulp is available to us because of what he did. So can you imagine what gratitude we owe him? To thee our infinite gratitude, before thee who has done so much for us, who hast worked, struggled, suffered, hoped, endured so much. Before thee who has willed all, attempted all, prepared, achieved all for us. Before thee we bow down and implore that we may never forget, even for a moment, all we owe to thee. So this was in 1950. Then we all know we just celebrated the supramental day, 29th February 1956, 6 years after Sri Aurobindo left his body. When mother was meditating with sadhaks in the playground, the supramental force finally did come down. And because Pondi is the epicenter where the force descended, it has this magical atmosphere. I've often quoted this story of how I took a colleague there once who didn't believe in mother and Sri Aurobindo, but she's lost a parent and she was a spinster and she was going through quite a depression. And while we were there, she kept telling me, I'm feeling nothing, this place is not for me. But when we came back, she called me after a week and she said, I haven't had a day's depression since I'm back. So we are so unconscious that we don't even feel the atmosphere working on us. But as I said, the question that if God is there, why so much suffering in the world? Mother and Sri Aurobindo have come down as a living answer to that. Mother actually says Sri Aurobindo's coming down to earth is not historical. It's an action and a sanction straight from the Supreme. The Supreme has sanctioned that the world has to change, that it's the advent of a new world. You can sit there. And so Sri Aurobindo has come down for that. Okay? So now we read in mother's words, part of it at least, the actual concrete descent of the supramental force. We all know it, but every time I read this in her language, it feels good. So let's read it. The mother has the concrete experience of the descent of the supramental consciousness on earth on February 29th, 1956, which is called the Golden Day. The lights had been turned off at the playground after the reading of some passages from the Synthesis of Yoga and the children's questions. Mother used to read Synthesis of Yoga and answer questions, and then there'd be a meditation. They all sat on the ground in a semicircle around her. One heard the sea in the distance, and the beam of the lighthouse swept over the top of the walls. 2 short flashes, one long. It was the Wednesday meditation. One saw Mother in the dark, seated in her low chair, bent somewhat forward, with a plumeria flower between her motionless fingers. She always looked white, this Mother, even when dressed in red or in whatever color, as if something radiated through her body, a kind of white luminosity, at times so dense that it became visible to our materialistic eyes. And there were the disciples silent. So this white luminosity, I was just reading in the biography of the Mother, when the Mother was quite young and she didn't really know that she was the Divine Mother. She was traveling in a bus at some local transport. She grew up abroad, we know that. And she said that there was a man in the bus or the vehicle who looked very distraught and totally shattered. And she didn't even know she was the Divine Mother. She was very young then. And she said something white came out of me without my knowing anything. It went and settled over the man, and suddenly the man was at peace and all smiles. So this white luminosity that the author is talking about, that was with her. She was born with it. She was the light of Aditi, which is the white light. So without even intending to, she was there, something flowed out of her and the person was healed. The Mother herself noted down that very evening, this is Mother's words, "This evening, the Divine Presence, concrete and material, was there present amongst you. I, that is the Mother, had a form of living gold, bigger than the universe, and I was facing a huge and massive golden door which separated the world from the Divine. As I looked at the door, I knew and willed in a single moment of movement of consciousness that the time has come. And lifting with both hands a mighty golden hammer, I struck one blow, one single blow at the door, and the door was shattered to pieces. Then the supramental light and force and consciousness rushed down upon earth in an uninterrupted flow." Later she explained in a conversation with K.D. Setna, the whole thing is not so much a vision or an experience as something done by me. I went up into the supermind and did what was to be done. There was no need for any verbal formulation as far as I was concerned, but in order to put it into words for others, I wrote the things down. Always in writing, a realization, a state of consciousness gets somewhat limited. The very act of expression narrows reality to some extent. The significance of this event cannot be overestimated, the significance of the descent of the supramental. What Sri Aurobindo and the Mother had been working for since the beginning of their Avataric Yoga was now realized. What had they been working for? To bring the supramental, the divine consciousness down on earth, to insert it into the earthly evolution and thus make the decisive evolutionary step possible by which one day a divinized species will be present on earth in a material body. The manifestation of the supramental on 29th February 1956 meant, among other things, that the future embodiment of the supramentally conscious being beyond man, of the divine Superman, was now assured, as it was assured that the human aspiration throughout countless millenniums was being fulfilled. the world would not always be a place of frustration, suffering, and death. Like everything else in the one divine, it would be able to materially develop its essential divine nature. K.D. Setna wrote in his diary, "I wonder when the world will realize that on 29 February 1956, the greatest event in history took place." We take it for granted, no, but this is really a chance humanity has never had. The descent of the supramental, it descended in Pondicherry, but it really spreads in the whole world, and wherever human consciousness is receptive to it, it acts. So it's indeed a very exciting time for the earth. Sri Aurobindo writes that if man could once glimpse the treasures of the spirit that are waiting for him, he would leave everything else and not want anything. But we are so blind, we keep reaching out for little things when the whole ocean is ours for the asking, but we are not really working for it or reaching out for it consciously. Yes, please. So, the mother announced the event in the Bulletin of April 1956. There she published the following 4 lines under the heading, "Lord, thou hast willed and I execute. A new light breaks upon the earth. A new world is born. The things that were promised are fulfilled." This was a modification of the 4 great lines from her diary entry on 25th September 1914, 42 years ago. So 42 years ago, in her prayers and meditation, Mother writes, "The Lord has willed and thou dost execute. A new light shall break upon the earth." This is before. "A new world shall be born, and things that were promised shall be fulfilled." And however long it takes, God always keeps his promise, isn't it? It took 42 years, but it happened. The supramental did descend. Tellingly, the future expectation has become the present realization. At the same time, she had the following declaration published under the date 24th April 1956. "The manifestation of the supramental upon earth is no more a promise, but a living fact, a reality. It is at work here, and one day will come when the most blind, the most unconscious, even the most unwilling shall be obliged to recognize it. Henceforth, in the ashram, 29th February was called the Golden Day." The mother says, "The only way to come a little close to him, to Sri Aurobindo, is to love him sincerely and give oneself unreservedly to his work. Thus each one does his best and contributes as much as he can to that transformation of the world which Sri Aurobindo has predicted." And there's this beautiful sonnet, I've taken a part of it by Sri Aurobindo, called "The God's Labor," where he writes, see, Sri Aurobindo had already achieved Nirvana after he sat with Lele for 3 days. He didn't need to do any yoga for himself, but after that, for decades, he labored with the collective human subconscious, inconscient, buried holes into it, dug into it to bring light down there. Because Mother and Sri Aurobindo say that unless the supramental light comes down to the subconscious, everything beautiful will be temporary. It will quickly get erased because the subconscious, or that part of us which is very unconscious, will continuously throughout its repetitious recordings and undo everything. And to work in the subconscious is to work in the murkiest, most horrible areas of consciousness. So a little bit of that Sri Aurobindo is describing in this sonnet. It's very beautiful. Sri Aurobindo says, I have gathered my dreams in a silver air. Silver air is an air of peace. Between the gold and blue. Gold is the supramental light. Blue is the color of overmental, Krishna's light. I have gathered my dreams in a silver air between the gold and the blue, and wrapped them softly and left them there, my jeweled dreams of you. Who is you, humanity? Imagine the Lord is writing a love song for us. I have gathered my dreams in a silver air between the gold and the blue, and wrapped them softly and left them there, my jeweled dreams of you. I had hoped to build a rainbow bridge, marrying the soil to the sky, marrying the earth and the spirit, and so in this dancing planet midge the moods of infinity. But too bright were our heavens, too far away, too frail the ethereal stuff, too splendid and sudden our light could not stay. The roots were not deep enough. So he's trying to bring the light down, but heaven is too far away, too frail. Its frequencies are too different from the frequency of the earth. He who would bring the heavens here must descend himself into clay, and the burden of earthly nature bear, and tread the dolorous, the painful, the sad way. Coercing my Godhead, I have come down. Godhead, coercing is forcing. The Godhead lives in such a realm of bliss that it doesn't really want to come to the earth, which is the opposite. But he has forced his Godhead to come down. So coercing my Godhead, I have come down here on the sordid earth, ignorant, laboring, human grown, twixt the gates of death and birth. I have been digging deep and long mid a horror of filth and mire, a bed for the golden river song. The golden river song is the supramental life on earth. So he's been digging in the filth and mire of the subconscious. I have been digging deep and long mid a horror of filth and mire, a bed for the golden river song, a home for the deathless fire. I have labored and suffered in matter's night, the human ignorance, to bring the fire to man. But the hate of hell and human spite are my meed since the world began. It goes on. I've just taken a part of it. Yeah.
So this God's labor is the work of the avatar.
Yes, yes, yes. It's his work for humanity.
And I think that Sri Aurobindo and Mother, they have worked all their life for this supramental manifestation.
Yes, of course, of course. The manifestation of the supramental upon earth is no more a promise but a living fact, a reality. Mother writes that on 24th April 1956, just after. It is at work here, and one day will come when the most blind, most unconscious, even most unwilling will be obliged to recognize it. I am speaking of a supramental manifestation evident to all, even the most ignorant, as the human manifestation was evident to all when it happened. To all those who aspire, open yourself to the new force. Let it do in you its work of transformation. You know, we get so caught up with mundane living, surviving, that magic is one breath away, but we are not tuning into it. We are not making enough. I mean, imagine the labor Mother and Sri Aurobindo did. I mean, it's unimaginable. If you read his records on yoga, if you read, you can't imagine the work they've done to give us this opportunity. And I wonder if we are making best use of it. I wonder if we are even realizing, you know, this question that torments us about human suffering, that why, if you are all that, we tell God, why am I suffering so much? Why is the world like this? But God has actually come down in the form of Mother and Sri Aurobindo and opened the path for us. But if we don't drink, you can take a camel to the water body, but the camel has to drink the water. Are we taking time to drink? Are we opening ourselves to her light? That is the question. So, open yourself to the new light that has dawned upon earth, and a luminous path will spread in front of you. See, I can only say that we think circumstances of life make us happy or unhappy, but this is the greatest fallacy, because circumstances are quicksilver. They are constantly going to change, and particularly as the supramental action is working in the earth atmosphere, it is going to create a lot of turmoil, because a lot of quick changes, and if we don't adapt to it, we will be unhappy. So it's not survival of the strongest, but it's the survival of the most flexible in a sense. And what can give ourselves the flexibility of consciousness? Nothing outside, but something changing inside us. So if we want to be happy, don't think that if you get the ideal life partner, if you make 3 lakhs a month, you'll be happy. It'll add a little bit, but it's not an answer to the inner unhappiness. Don't think that if that person you really love and is not reciprocating the love suddenly reciprocates the love, you'll be happy. You'll find other things to be unhappy about. It's about changing something inside you, and that path to unconditional happiness and joy is what Mother has come to show us, what Sri Aurobindo has come to show us. And it would really be our misfortune if we don't walk that path. It will be really our loss. Yeah?
Is it really?
Can we keep the questions for the end so it doesn't break? Just whatever questions you have, I'll keep time for question answers at the end. Can you hold it then, till then? Unless you feel it's very relevant to what we are saying just now. If it can be held to the end, then hold it to the end. Beyond all question, it is the supramental light, the Mother says. Do not tense yourself, be open, passively allow it to penetrate your body. It has the power to restore you to strength and health. So beautiful. I remember when I take children to Pandi on yoga camps, adolescents. I remember there was one girl who had a long time some kind of corn or some kind of inflammation in her hand here, which was just not healing no matter what she did. And every night we would go to the samadhi and they would touch the samadhi. And she said that I don't know how, when I came back, this growth which was there for years, it has just disappeared. So when Mother says that open yourself to the supramental light and it will bring you to health and whatever, it's not a promise in the air, it's true, but we have to open ourselves to it. You are trying to get the experiences in your mind, but it is not the mind that can get it. Come out of your mind and you will understand what I mean. So that's why, to be open to the supramental light, the first condition is mental silence. You cannot think about the supermind, you cannot reach for it by thinking about it. But if your mind falls silent, so that's why Mother says here, do not tense yourself with too much eagerness and effort. Be open, passively allow it to penetrate your body. You are trying to get the experience in your mind, but it is not the mind that can get it. Come out of the mind and you will understand what I mean. Man must understand that in spite of all his intellectual achievements, he is as incapable of perceiving the supramental vibrations as the animal was incapable of perceiving the mental vibrations when they pervaded the earth before the appearance of the human species. Somebody asked the mother, couldn't someone who has a more trained perception tell me by what signs I can recognize that a person is in relation with the supramental? Mother says, two irrefutable signs prove that one is in relation with the supramental. One, a perfect and constant equality. You won't get ruffled by anything. That means you're in touch with the supramental. And an absolute certainty of knowledge. See, when you're thinking from the mind, you'll always be confused. Should I do this? Should I do that? Is this mother's will? Is that mother's will? But when you're under the supramental influence, you just know what to do. You don't have to think. And voices can tell you 1,000 things, but the inner GPS is so beautiful that you just know where you have to go and what you have to do. So these are the two things that show supramental action: a perfect equality and a constant inner knowing of the truth and being guided by the truth. To be perfect, the equality must be invariable and spontaneous, effortless towards all circumstances, all happenings, all contacts, material or psychological, irrespective of their character and impact, the absolute and indispensable certainty of an infallible knowledge through identity. Now the question is, further Mother says, a perfect equality towards all circumstances, material or psychological, and an absoluteness in knowledge, a knowledge that comes not through the mind but through identity. The person who is in contact with the supramental possesses these two qualities. The Mother says, the world is preparing for a big change. Will you help? How poignant. We are always asking God for help, but here God's asking humanity, will you help? What is this great change of which you speak, and how are we to be of help to it? A sadhak asks the Mother. The great change is the appearance upon earth of a new race, which will be for man what man is for the animal. The consciousness of this new race is already at work upon the earth to enlighten all who are able to receive it and heed it. You have asked us to help you. A sadhak asks, how can I help you? What am I to do? To concentrate and open, to receive the new progressive consciousness, to receive the new things which are coming. Mother replies, the change does not need our help to come, but we need to open ourselves to the consciousness so that its coming is not in vain for us. To allow for the free working of the new consciousness that has descended last year, what should a sadhak do? The question was. Mother says, 1, be receptive, 2, be plastic. I said no, that it's not survival of the strongest, it's the survival of the most flexible, one who can quickly adapt to changes and not want things only in their way, because that's how the supramental consciousness will work. It will constantly usher in change, and we need to be receptive to it. So, the supramental and the new being, let us prepare as best we can the coming of the new being. The mind must be silenced and replaced by the truth consciousness, a consciousness of the whole harmonized with a consciousness of the detailed. The mind must be silent to allow the supramental consciousness to take its place. So I'll pause here. So a question was put to the mother that the mother asked, the world is preparing for a big change, will you help? She asked humanity this. How can we help? Mother says, by opening yourself to the light that is coming. But how do we open ourselves? So Mother also says that there are two conditions which are proof of the supramental acting. First condition is
Aspiration.
equality. We just did it. Equality. Under every circumstance, you have to be equal. Now, what will allow for this equality? We can't even be equal to something like delay in reaching where we have to go if the traffic is too much. Can we gain access to this equality? So, Sri Aurobindo says beautifully that he coins a beautiful term, Kalyan Shraddha, faith in the goodness of life, faith in the knowing that everything in this moment is perfectly as it needs to be. My mind may label it good or bad, but behind all that, everything is happening by a divine will, of course distorted by human ignorance. And the divine will would work much better if that distortion wasn't there, granted. But even so, it's the divine will working out everything in my life. And I'll distort that divine will the least when I'm in surrender. When can I be in surrender? When I have a knowing within me that this creation is the body of God and everything that's happening within it is perfect from a context that my mind can't understand. Every seeming bad is actually good in the making. So it's beautiful in the Gita. I refer to this often. Sri Krishna says that a devotee of mine is one who's in a state of Shubh Ashubh Parityagi. Shubh is fortunate, Ashubh is unfortunate, Pari is fully, Tyagi is renounced. One who has fully renounced the distinction between fortunate and unfortunate and takes whatever happens to him as my prasad and receives it like that. And it's really a shift in perspective, even pain. It's how we respond to it. Why do we shrink from pain so much? The biggest blessings come to us wrapped in pain, isn't it? Someone beautifully said, somebody gifted me a box of darkness. It took me so long to see that that too was a blessing. Even that box of darkness was a blessing. Everything is a blessing. Now, this I'm telling you, and you'll try to believe it with your mind because I'm saying it. That works, but only to an extent. But as we were doing this morning in our yoga class, when we really silence our mind, when we did breath work, etc., to really silence our mind, nobody needs to tell you this. In that state of silence, you already feel I'm good. Have you noticed that? How many of you have noticed that you can have a state of your thoughts slowing down and still feel life's not good? It's not possible. When your thoughts are silent, there's a knowing within you which emerges. The Kalyan Shraddha is not a belief, it's a knowing of your deepest. And that knowing comes forward and you just know that everything is good. And you don't have to fight anything. You fight an enemy. But life is your friend. Why? It's foolish to fight a friend. So when you have a quiet mind, you're in that state of surrender. Not surrender to this or that. Surrender to whatever comes. You say an inner yes to everything. And that is the real Ishwar Pranidhan. Surrender, Atma Samarpan. It's not like saying I love God but I hate man and I hate the world. Then Sri Aurobindo says, then who is it that you love? Because the world is God. You can't say I love God and hate man. Then who is it that you love? So an inner, and if you practice this, if it's theoretical, it's nice, it's for the moment, but if you practice this, an inner state where you say yes to everything in this moment, if you just change all the inner no's, no no's, to an inner yes, you're shouting at me, yes. Traffic is holding me up, yes. My head is aching, yes. My stomach is bloated, yes. No resistance. Whatever is happening, when you say an inner yes to it, somehow what happens is you shift to another space. You're no longer identified with the headache or the you which is shrinking because of somebody's words or whatever. And you let it go on. Your mental dialogue may still say this is good, this is bad, but you're not really identified with it. You're outside it. You're the space outside the inner dialogue. So actually this inner surrender naturally takes you to the Sakshi Bhav. It takes you to the poise of the witness, which is actually unaffected by anything. So the great Ramana Maharishi, once when he was having a surgery, we all know he had cancer, and on the insistence of the devotees, they were performing a surgery, and he says, I won't take anesthesia. And the doctor said, but Bhagwan, it will really hurt you. He said, I'm fine. So when they actually did it, Bhagwan winced in pain. So the doctor said, Bhagwan, we told you it would hurt you. So Bhagwan smiled and said, yeah, it hurt the body, but am I the body? I'm not the body. The body winces, but I'm not in pain. So even in that state, he had that. And we can't cope with a little headache, a little this, a little that. We start bringing the world down. We start doing everything to change it. It's a great skill to be okay with pain, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional. You don't have to flap around to get rid of it. Learn to be okay with it. The same hand, invisible hand of life which brought it will take it away. When you interfere, sometimes it gets worse. So the first step is surrender and silence. Surrender paves its way to silence. So loving surrender and silence are two sides of the same coin. The more you're in the state of that loving surrender, the more silent your mind will be. And the more silent your mind is, the more open you are to the light that comes. Even in your aspiration, Mother writes there can be two kinds of aspiration. One is egoistic aspiration, where I'm not feeling good, Mother, I'm calling to you, you make me feel good, which is okay, it's a starting point. But that's not the real aspiration. The real aspiration is when you're silent and surrendered and just open to Mother without asking for anything. It's more a state of wanting to give yourself to the Mother. Aspiration is really a state of self-giving. Your need is to give yourself to her, not to draw you into yourself. But the beauty is that if you give yourself to her, she pours into you more than what you could ever imagine. She gives you more than you could ever dream of asking. But you have to reach that poise. The truth consciousness must pervade all the being, dominate all the movements, and quiet the restless physical mind. These are the preliminary conditions for the manifestation. Wisdom in the physical mind, a first step towards supramental manifestation upon earth. It is only when the supramental manifests in the body-mind that its presence can be permanent. So, unless it manifests in the mind and body, then its effect is permanent. It is indispensable that each one finds a psychic and unites with it definitively. It is through the psychic that the supramental will manifest. So, one condition is silence. And in that silence, uniting with the psychic, the Mother's presence in the heart, and opening to her from there. The truth consciousness can manifest only in those who are rid of the ego. That's another condition. See, the path of the asura is the path of, say, Max Thian or Ravan, who are very powerful beings, but they want the power to glorify themselves, to become more and more shining like the sun. But Mother's way is the way of self-surrender. It's not about accruing power to make yourself more effulgent. It's accruing power so that that power makes the world a better place to live in. That is the difference. So Nietzsche also talked of the Superman, the Hitler's version of the Superman, the race he wanted to create. It's ironical that Hitler and Sri Aurobindo were in the same era. It's like darkness wanted to create one image of the Superman, physically very strong, very powerful. That's the race Hitler wanted to create, but completely emotionless, completely without compassion. And here Sri Aurobindo was working to create a Superman in the image of God. And really in all of us these two tendencies will come, because when the supramental comes, it's very powerful, it's a great power. But that's where it's a test of our allegiance. Are we going to be loyal to the mother? Are we going to be loyal to the ego? If we are loyal to the ego, it's the path of darkness. If we are loyal to the mother, it's the path of light. Man and the mind are not the last term of creation. A supramental being is in preparation. The mind does not know truly, aspire sincerely to the supermind. Okay, now we come to some absolutely breathtaking lines from Savitri. So, Sri Aurobindo writes, page 311, in absolute silence sleeps an absolute power. We feel silence is just there, it's dumb, it can't do anything. But Sri Aurobindo says in absolute silence sleeps an absolute power. Awaking, it can wake the trance-bound soul. So that's why Sri Aurobindo keeps insisting that the first step of his yoga is silence. Because if you manage to silence your thoughts or at least slow them down, you don't need to do anything. That silence awakens the psychic being. That silence awakens the trance-bound soul. And in the ray, reveal the parent son. So beautiful. The mother used to say, I don't like to speak of God and His creation. I would rather speak of the Lord and His becoming. He has become all of us, right? He's not separate from us. So each of us is a ray of the parent sun. But when we are silent and our soul awakens, the ray discovers that it is the parent sun. It's not separate. So these are beautiful lines. In absolute silence sleeps an absolute power. Awaking, it can wake the trance-bound soul, and in the ray reveal the parent sun. It can make the world a vessel of the Spirit's force. It can fashion in the clay God's perfect shape. So when you're silent and receptive, the light comes down and it can make the world a vessel of the Spirit's force. It can fashion in the clay God's perfect shape. To free the self is but one radiant pace. Here to fulfill himself was God's desire. On sorrowless heights no winging cry disturbs. Pure and untouched above this mortal play. This is page 320. On sorrowless heights no winging cry disturbs. Pure and untouched above this mortal play is spread the Spirit's hushed, immobile air. So on sorrowless heights above the mind, no winging cry, no cry of thought, desire disturbs. Pure and untouched above the mortal play is spread the spirit's hushed immobile air. There no beginning is, and there no end. There is the stable force of all that moves. There the aeonic laborer is at rest. There's a misprint in the PDF. It's not aconic, it's aeonic, A-E-O. There the aeonic laborer is at rest. So he's saying that this silence is the stable force of all that moves, the stillness we are coming to. Everything moves because that is still. So I'm just reading these again. See, for Savitri, those of you who are new to it, more than the intellectual understanding, see the vibration it creates inside you. Savitri is something that actually can shift you even if you don't understand a word of what's being said. On sorrowless heights, no winging cry disturbs. Pure and untouched above this mortal play is spread the spirit's hushed, immobile air. There no beginning is, and there no end. There is the stable force of all that moves. There the aeonic laborer is at rest. Aeonic laborer is the mind. The mind is quiet, it's at rest. Now page 322. Then suddenly there came a downward look, as if a sea. So this is in a canto on Ashwapati, Savitri's father's yoga, and his inner discoveries. Then suddenly there came a downward look, as if a sea exploring its own depths. A living oneness widened at its core and joined him that is Ashwapati, to unnumbered multitudes. So he'd gone to great heights, and then suddenly there was a downward look, as if a sea is looking at its depths. And when he looked from the heights at the depths, he discovered that he was everything. He was the depths also. Then suddenly there came a downward look, as if a sea exploring its own depths. A living oneness widened at its core and joined him to unnumbered multitudes. A bliss, a light, a power, a flame white love caught all into a soul immense embrace. So as he feels this cosmic oneness, the whole feeling is one of bliss, light, power, a flame white love. Normally our love is red, it's full of passion, possessiveness. But here the red flame of love is bleached to white. It has purity, it has oneness, it has no attachment. We can't imagine love without attachment, no, but the real love is love which is completely free from attachment. A bliss, a light, a power, a flame white love caught all into a soul immense embrace. Existence found its truth on oneness's breast, and each became the self and space of all. So all these beautiful states are available to us if we open to the supramental light. It's not just for Ashwapati, it's something all of us can have access to. And to want this kind of joy, it's like $1 million of consciousness, and we are reaching out for a few hundred rupees in our day-to-day pursuit. Aren't we being foolish? So, a bliss, a light, a power, a flame white love caught all into a soul immense embrace. Existence found its truth on oneness's breast, and each became the self and space of all. The great world rhythms were heartbeats of one soul. What a priceless line. The great world rhythms were heartbeats of one soul. Like everything in the world has a rhythm, right? And it's as if all the rhythms are heartbeats of one soul, the one source. That one heart is beating in all the great world rhythms. To feel was a flame discovery of God. All mind was a single harp of many strings. All life a song of many meeting lives. For worlds were many, but the self was one. Further, two beings he was. This is Ashwapati. Two beings he was. This is on page 330 of Savitri. Two beings he was, one wide and free above, one struggling, bound, intense, its portion here. We are all this, no? One part of us which we are not conscious of is free above, wide and free, and one is struggling, bound, intense, its portion here. A tie between them still could bridge two worlds. There was a dim response, a distant breath. All had not ceased in the unbounded hush. His heart lay somewhere conscious and alone. Far down below him like a lamp in night, abandoned it lay, alone, imperishable. Immobile with excess of passionate will, his living, sacrificed, and offered heart, absorbed in adoration mystical, turned to its far-off fount of light and love. So Ashwapati is in a state of that complete aspiration where his heart is sacrificed, his living, sacrifice and offered heart, absorbed in adoration mystical, turned to its far-off fount of light and love. In the luminous stillness of its mute appeal, it looked up to the heights it could not see. It yearned from longing depths it could not leave. So that's all our states. We are looking up to heights we can't see. We get an impression that something is there, but we can't see it. And from longing depths it could not leave. So this reminds me of that poem of Sri Aurobindo on a tree standing beside a sandy river shore, earthbound, heaven amorous, body and brain hungry for the earth, its heavenly flight detain. Earthbound, heaven amorous. It's in love with heaven, but it's bound to the earth. Body and brain hungry for the earth, its heavenly flight detain. That's all our state. So that's what he's saying here. It looked up to the heights it could not see. It yearned from the longing depths it could not leave. In the center of his vast and fateful trance, halfway between his free and fallen selves, interceding twixt God's day and the mortal's night, accepting worship as its single law. How beautiful! Can you imagine a state of being where you don't abide by any law but worshipping the beloved? What a beautiful state of being, accepting worship as its single law. Accepting bliss as the sole cause of things, refusing the austere joy which none can share, refusing the calm that lives for calm alone. To her it turned for whom it willed to be, the mother. In the passion of its solitary dream, it lay like a closed, soundless oratory. Oratory is a place of worship like a church. So Sri Aurobindo is painting with words. He's describing the psychic being as a word picture. It's like when you go within, you're going into a closed and soundless oratory. Soundless because your thoughts have stopped. In the passion of its solitary dream, it lay like a closed, soundless oratory where sleeps a consecrated argent floor. Argent is silver. Silver is the color of peace. So this chamber within, its floor is silver with peace. lit by a single and untrembling ray, and an invisible presence kneels in prayer. So beautiful to imagine your psychic being as that part of you inside which is constantly in a state of prayer and self-giving. These are beautiful lines. You can do a whole meditation on this. Just create this whole visual. Actually do it. Shut your eyes and visualize in your heart space a place of worship which has a silver floor, and the real you, which is a portion of the mother in you, is in a state of constant kneeling down in prayer, constant self-giving and love for her. No matter what you feel on the surface, deep down you are always this. And hear these lines. In the passion of its solitary dream, it lay like a closed, soundless oratory where sleeps a consecrated argent floor, lit by a single and untrembling ray, and an invisible presence kneels in prayer on some deep breast of liberating peace. All else was satisfied with quietude. This, the one who's kneeling in prayer, this only knew there was a truth beyond. All other paths were dumb in centered sleep, consenting to the slow, deliberate power which tolerates the world's error and its grief, consenting to the cosmic long delay, timelessly waiting through the patient years, her coming they had asked for earth and men. This was the fiery point that called her now. You can open your eyes or continue with eyes closed. Extinction could not quench that lonely fire. Extinction means nirvana. So this call of the psychic being would not be content to just leave the world in nirvana. Extinction could not quench that lonely fire. Its seeing filled the blank of mind and will. Thought dead, its changeless force abode and grew, armed with the intuition of a bliss to which some moved tranquility was the key. It persevered through life's huge emptiness, amid the blank denials of the world. It sent its voiceless prayer to the unknown. It listened for the footsteps of its hopes, returning through the void immensities. It waited for the fiat of the word, the coming of the word, that comes through the still self from the Supreme. So this is it. The fiat of the word only comes to the still self from the Supreme. So if you want to be in touch with the truth consciousness, you have to silence your mind, because the fiat of the word comes to the still self from the Supreme. If the self is not still, you will miss it. Okay? So these are states which are waiting for us if we open to the supramental light. So what would be your take home from this class? How would you bring this class into life? So first thing is to, whenever you're feeling overwhelmed by suffering in yourself, suffering in the world around, and you question whether God is really doing his job. I know somebody who had this question haunting him, and one day he was talking to Sri Aurobindo, and mother is his executive force, right? So he complained to Sri Aurobindo about mother, that you better pull up your executive force, she's made a mess of the world. So that's just in a lighter vein. He loves the mother very much. He didn't really mean it, but when you love God, you can take liberties like this with him. He's okay with it. But the point is, whenever that kind of question comes to you, it's beautiful to remember that Mother and Sri Aurobindo have worked every moment with their all-powerful consciousness to pave a new way, a new road for humanity. That the supermind or the supramental force has come down on earth. And if you just quieten the agitation of your mind and open to it, it will do its work in you. And every time one piece, you're a piece of the whole, right? So one piece of the whole receives the light. Through you, the light inevitably spreads into the whole. So if you're disturbed by the agitation of family members, the best way you can help them is to open yourself through to the light, because through you, the light will spread around. The mother says so beautifully that if I make one of you my own, your whole family becomes my responsibility. She's taking care of everyone. So the best help you can give them is to embody her light. Now the question is, how do we open to her light? First condition is in whatever way you can, silence the mind. And then don't stay. And how do you silence the mind? One way we discuss, there are many, but one way is to be in surrender to what is, to not quarrel with life. Whatever life brings, to say yes to it, soften behind it, and not tango in fighting it. Okay, to say an inner yes to whatever life brings. And then in a state, not to stay in that silence. In that silence, the other important thing is to bring in this aspiration. So to make your mind quiet, and then just go within where you feel the mother, and then you don't have to do anything. Feeling the mother already has this state of aspiration. So you just stay, and that aspiration is what? A feeling of wanting to give yourself to the source, to give yourself to the mother. Aspiration is really an urge to give. Okay? So you make your mind quiet, you go within, you feel her, you open to her like a flower opens to the sun. The flower doesn't pull the sunlight down, it can't, it would destroy itself. It just opens and it allows the sunlight to penetrate it and to make it blossom. So if we do that in our moments of despair, anything that puts us in touch with mother, read something, but instead of going helter-skelter, distracting yourself, trying to call people to bail you out, all that's necessary sometimes. But try this. In my opinion, it's the most powerful and effective way. See, even if people want to help you out, beyond a point they can't. They can't help you out the way this light that you are can. So it's sensible to turn to this light more and more rather than to the people. Okay, any sharings from last week's class? Did you practice anything?
I think reading of Mother and Sri Aurobindo's writing is very
Yes,
important.
yes. So do that, whatever connects you. What was our last time's class? Generosity, it's seed and shades. Did anyone find opportunities where you found yourself being small and you enlarged to generosity? You did? Personal, or you can share? Okay. That's fine, so long as you did. Anyone else? Did you?
Very relatable. What I just read, I hadn't come last Saturday, but I just read what you had spoken about last Saturday. Very relatable, like you could like sort of think about it and
But do hear the talk, because we discuss concrete ways of bringing it into our life.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, you did. Yeah. So did anyone bring it in your life is my question. You weren't there, some of you did, but it's personal, or you'll share?
I can share.
Loudly.
So after that, the next day,
Can you come here? You won't be heard.
I'll be loud.
Okay. Okay.
So, the next week we had an assignment in college, and
Pratna, give this.
the next day we had an assignment in college, and the week we were going to Pondi, that was the week the group was decided. So I wasn't with my usual group of people that I work with, and I got stuck with people. Yeah, for the assignment. And I got stuck with a group of people who don't work at all, and their reputation in college is like the worst. None of the teachers like them, and I got stuck with them. And I was like really overthinking that, I won't get my marks and my whole grade will come down. And then after the Savitri talk, I just thought that, it's okay, like at the end of the day, it's just marks, and it can't be that bad. And I just went with an open mind in that meeting with all these people, and I just decided to overlook the fact that they have this image. And I was like,
So you were generous with them. One aspect of generosity is to be like the knight when it comes to the fault of others, not to highlight it in your mind. Or so that's what you did.
yeah, I just looked beyond that, and then I managed to get everyone in the meeting, and whatever, even if they didn't help, I was like, at the end of the day, it's okay, we all need the marks. And then I don't know, somewhere I felt like how Miss you had told us that try and look behind their face and see that it's actually the mother's face. So I tried doing that, and it really helped me. I didn't look at them the same way, and my perception about them changed. And surprisingly, they all were really friendly with me. And like, college is ending in like 1 week, but today we all were so friendly, everyone was hanging out together, and it was just it was completely different. Like, I never imagined that to happen. It didn't happen for 3 years, and it just happened like in the last 2 years.
Thank you. That's beautiful. That's exactly what we were saying. That happiness is not about outer circumstances, it's about your inner attitude. You change your inner attitude, the same circumstance that could cause you grief actually becomes a joyful circumstance. Anyone else? Anything to share? Okay. You want to share?
Surrender is gradual, I mean.
Yes.
One can't get that.
Yes.
And I think one should not be pain about it. That
Yes.
you have not made the total surrender.
Yes, absolutely. Trupti, anything? Okay. Any questions before we end? Okay. Chalo, let's end with 3 ohms. Om.